everybody, this is Dave02 with Country Coding. So today we are going to be learning, so hopefully you watched the first part of installing Python. You actually know how to work the system. So if you haven't, I suggest that you go back to the first video. Sorry guys. A little bit embarrassing here. Okay, that's better. Okay. So if you haven't watched the first part of installing Python, I suggest you go to the previous video and look at that. If you're still confused on how to do that, then just look at other YouTube videos. I'm not going to make a second one. So you guys have fun with that, but let's actually get into coding Python. And there's several things that I have to explain, but other than that, we should be good. Now, what I want you guys to do is, if you remember from the first part of the video, or the first clip, we created a first tutorial.py, and hopefully you guys saved it on your desktop. If you haven't, go to your text editor, save the file as first tutorial.py, and save it to your desktop. I'll wait for you guys to do that. That's actually a good song. Okay, awesome. So once you've done that, if you don't have the file open up, I'm just gonna wait for you to open up that file here really quick. Okay, let's get into coding. Now remember, have your terminal open or your PowerShell opened up for this part, because that's how we're going to run the Python code in the first place. So if you remember from the first clip, we typed in Python 3 and then we typed in the directory path to that file, and then we hit enter. That's how we got our code in the first place. So we're going to be using the text editor most of the time to be writing our code here. So let's get started with Python syntaxes. Well, let's get started first with creating variables. So unlike other programming language, Python has no command for declaring a variable. A variable is actually created the moment you first assign a value to it. So let me show you an example what a variable is. Let's say I have x, right? And I assign a value of 5 to x. So x itself is a variable. This is a value, right? Okay, let's remember that there's two data types when dealing with Python. There are integers, like numbers, and then there are strings. So let me show you what a string is. So let's say if I have y, I assign the value of a string to it. So to do a string, I would do double quotation marks here and type in Sally. So remember, this is what we call an integer, and this is what we call a string. So they're two different things. To create a comment within Python, you would want to type in the pound symbol and then you can type whatever you want. So what comments are used for mostly? Excuse me. Comments are usually used for are making obvious are just so sorry. It is early in the morning, so excuse me if I make a lot of mistakes on this video. Again, I'm not the type of person that likes to redo videos, so whatever I capture here, just deal with it. So comments are usually made to help guide people on what you're exactly doing on the code itself. And when you're working in development, that's very important, because let's say, for example, I decide to pass this on to someone else. Well, obviously you want to make comments to tell them exactly what you've done with the code. So in this case, to make a comment, I want to have a hashtag right here or a pound symbol, and I want to type out X is of type int. So in this comment right here, int represents integer, and I want to make a comment to say that this is an integer. Now let's do the same thing with the string here. X is of type str. So str is abbreviation of string. So y equals Sally. We have the pound symbol there. X is of type str. Now I suggest that you guys don't to make it more organized, I usually like to put my comments on top like that, but for now we're just going to put it on the side here. You can do it whatever you want with it. Okay, so variable names can be short like X or Y, as you can see right here, or they could be more descriptive. So you can, for example, let's say I want to put age equals 52. I can make my variables more descriptive if I want. And they can actually contain any alphanumeric characters and underscores to it. So for example, Sally underscore underage. Not good. So with strings, I can put spaces in between, but if it's not a string and if it's a variable, I have to put underscore if I'm going to make a space between two words, if that makes sense. So just to let you guys know, variables are very case sensitive, and when I'm talking about case sensitive, I'm talking about uppercase letters. So if I was to put Sally underscore underage, that is different from Sally underage. Even though they are basically the same, because Sally has uppercase letters within the variable itself, it's going to be different from the other variable called Sally underage. So this is going to be a totally different variable. If that makes sense. Okay, awesome. So let's play around with this. So when we do assign values to variables, we can use that variable multiple times. So let me give you an example what I mean by that. Let's type in the variable x equals double quotation marks, and within those double quotation marks type in your name. Okay, awesome. So once we've done that, let's type in our first statement, print. Opening and closing parentheses. And within those opening closing parentheses, let's put an X plus double quotation marks and type in is really cool. Okay, so when we combined variables and strings together, we want to use the plus sign. And later on, we'll be talking about that. That's called connotations. When you connect something, in coding we call it connect. The C-O-N-C-A-T. When you connect two values together, you're making connections. Get it? Connections? Ah. I'm probably saying it wrong, but it doesn't really matter, right? So we're connecting this to that. We're connecting this to that, right? Anyways. Okay, let's save it. And see what happens here. So let's go back to terminal or PowerShell. Again, if you guys don't really want to rewrite this over and over again, I suggest you copy it. So you can either just right click on highlight the code, right click it and just copy it, and then just do a Control Shift V, which just basically pastes it on your PowerShell or your terminal. You have to do Control Shift V. You can't just do Control V, because if you do Control V, it's not going to work. It has to be Control Shift V if you want to paste that line to terminal or PowerShell, and hit enter. Voila! Hokophonu is really cool. As you can see, there's our variable. It has a value that's assigned to that variable. And then we connected both the variable and the string together, which comes out with this code right here. So you could do other things with Python, which is pretty cool. As I explained before, you could do mathematical equations with it. So let's do an example of that really quick here. Let's say that x equals 10 and y equals 11. Okay, now let's type in print and do x plus y. I'll wait for you guys to do that. Okay, cool. Let's save it. And let's run the code again. So remember, Control Shift V. And voila! We've got our answer, 21. If you have too many lines here, let's say a lot of text on either PowerShell or terminal, I believe on terminal you just, I know on terminal you could just type in clear and it will clear the whole terminal for you. So just to let you guys know about that. But anyways, you get the point. Now we do have to be careful in Python. If you try to combine a string and a number, Python will give you an error. So for example, let's do this. Let's go back to our code here. Double quotation marks. Type in Sally. And let's save the file. I'll wait for you guys to do that. Okay. Let's run that code. As I told you before, this is what the error says. Unsupported operand type for plus, int, and str. You can't have an integer or a string together. An integer and a string together. You can't just do that. They both have to be integers or strings. So how do you do that? Well, there's several ways of doing that. 1 second here. There's several ways you can do that. So this is another function that we have that's called str or int. I'll let you guys look at that for a second. So str, what it does, it converts the value into a string, and int converts the value into an integer. So in this practice, and I know this is a really horrible way of doing it, we are going to convert the variable x into a string. So do that right now. Let's save our file here. And let's run our code. And voila, it doesn't pop up with that error. So that's one way to fix it. Let's try making our string into an integer. What do you guys think will happen? It doesn't make any logical sense, right? But let's see what happens here. They'll probably pull up with an error. So you can't do that with, that's what sucks, is that you can't make a string into an integer because it doesn't make any logical sense. It's not numeric, right? This has no value at all. Numeric value, I mean. So you can't convert a string into an integer, but you can convert an integer into a string. And that can be very useful, especially when you're making comments. So for example, say I want to make that into a string, right? Again, this is a really poor way of coding, but this is just for example's sake. We'll be using this in more complex ways. So let's run that code here. Look at that. So we've learned about variables, how you can assign a value into a variable, and we've learned about different data types, and we've learned about comments. Now, the last thing that I want to teach you about is multi-line comments. So if we were to make, for example, a multi-line comment, you would have to do triple quotation marks right here. You can see that. That's very important, right? Within those triple quotation marks, and when I say within, make sure they are within. We use them to make long descriptions about the project itself. And there you go. So the triple quotation marks is used mostly for commenting on the project itself. So you would use it at the beginning of your code to describe what the project is supposed to do, or if you're to make any like long description on certain parts of the code, I would use the triple quotation marks for that. So again, there is the single pound sign where you can make the, whatever comment you want, but you can't do the multi line function with that one. So there's a difference between those two comment types. See what else we have to learn today. I think that's about it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you've learned a lot. Again, clear out your screen, and you guys have a great day.